Shalom, welcome back. Picking up here in Revelation chapter 10. Like I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm using a couple of books as a basic guideline to put together these presentations, and of course I'm adding my own particular understanding to this, so my views don't necessarily reflect the views of either author. The first book is The Mysteries History by Adam Drissel. Of the two books, this would be the one I would recommend reading. I like his presentation, and Adam Drissel is a Hebraic roots believer, so his theology is somewhat closer to the way I believe. Although I don't think my opinions would necessarily reflect his understanding either. And then the other book is Back to the Future by Ralph Bass, and it's more of just like a Christian view of the book of Revelation. All right, so picking up in the text of the book of Revelation, Revelation 10:1, and I saw another strong messenger coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud, and a rainbow on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like columns of fire. And having in his hand a scroll opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was able to write. But I heard a voice from the heavens saying to me, seal up what the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. And the messenger whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to the heavens and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heaven and what's in them, and the earth and what's in it, and the sea and what's in it, that there shall be no further delay. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th messenger, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servants the prophets. So the end of this verse, verse 7, when the 7th messenger sounds. So we're about to hear the 7th messenger, and apparently at this point, the mystery of Elohim, or the secret of Elohim, shall be ended. And if you read ahead to the next chapter, that's when the kingdom of heaven is established on earth, or his reign has power and authority on earth. So this passage in Revelation, it is invoking similar imagery as to what Daniel's vision saw. So you can see it's very similar to Daniel's vision. Starting in verse 4 of chapter 4, but you, Daniel, hide the words and seal the scroll until the time of the end. Many shall diligently search, and knowledge shall increase. Then I, Daniel, looked and saw 2 others standing, one on this bank of the river and the other on that bank. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long until the end of these wonders? And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he held up his right hand and his left hand to the heavens, and swore by him who lives forever that it will be for times, and half a time. And when they had ended scattering the power of the set apart people, then all these shall be completed. So you see this same messenger, or a very similar messenger. Daniel's messenger lifts his hands to the heavens and swears by him who lives forever. John's messenger lifts his hands to heaven and swears by him who lives forever. This timeline. And so during the time of Daniel, the timeline still had times, and half a time remaining, but in the days of John, there was no time remaining. The time for, the time is up, basically. There's also, speaking about this scroll, Daniel's told to seal up the scroll. I believe that this is probably the same scroll that we see in the book of Revelation, or at least it should be understood to be the same scroll. So in Daniel's time, you see this scroll being sealed, and in John's time, the seals are broken, the scroll is being read. But in the same way that John was told to seal up the words of the seven thunders, Daniel is also told to seal up the scroll. So I don't know if the seven thunders actually said something, if it's anything we need to understand, or if it's just being added to the text in order to bring us to this passage from Daniel. I think that maybe the purpose of chapter 10 is to have the reader to go back and look at these other prophecies and apocalypses to get an understanding of what's being communicated in Revelation 10. Moving on, it says, "And the voice which I heard out of the heavens spoke to me again and said, Go, take the scroll which is open in the hand of the messenger standing on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the messenger and said to him, Give me the scroll. And he said to me, Take and eat it. Take it and eat, and it shall make your stomach bitter, but shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the scroll out of the messenger's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And he said to me, You have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and sovereigns." Now, this passage from Daniel is similar to what we saw in Ezekiel. At the end of Ezekiel 2 and the beginning of Ezekiel 3. It says, "And you, son of man, hear what I'm speaking to you. Do not be a rebellious house like that rebellious house." And he's speaking about the house of Israel. "Open your mouth and eat what I am giving you." And I looked and saw a hand stretched out to me, and a scroll of a book was on it. And he spread it before me, and it was written on the inside and the outside. And written on it were lamentations and mourning and woe. And he said to me, "Son of man, eat what you find, eat this scroll, and go speak to the house of Israel." And I opened my mouth, and he fed me the scroll. And he said to me, "Son of man, feed your stomach, and fill your stomach with this scroll that I'm giving you." And I ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. So, very similar to what we see in the book of Revelation, where John is being given this scroll. So, the prophet Ezekiel is being sent to the house of Israel. The house of Israel at this point has already been driven out of the land, and the remnant of this house of Israel is living on the east side of the land of Assyria, near the Caspian Sea, and so Ezekiel is being sent to the house of Israel in their dispersion to deliver this message, and this scroll is being given to Ezekiel, and he's going to go and prophesy to the house of Israel. This passage being sweeter than honey, it says, "The Torah of Yahweh is perfect, bringing back the being. The witness of Yahweh is trustworthy, making wise the simple. The orders of Yahweh are straight, rejoicing in the heart. The command of Yahweh is clear, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, standing forever. The right ruling of Yahweh are true, they are righteous altogether, more desirable than gold, than fine gold, and sweeter than honey, and the honeycomb. Also your servant is warned by them. In guarding them, there is a great reward." So, what is this scroll? Well, previously, in chapter 7, when Yeshua is breaking the 7 scrolls off the 7 seals off the scroll, I stated that I believed it was a marriage covenant, and that marriage covenants in the ancient Near East were sealed with multiple scrolls, and they were written on both sides. So these ancient marriage documents would also contain the terms of divorce. It would also contain the vows that were made. So in the book of Deuteronomy, there's a list of blessings and cursings. And so I believe that these blessings and cursings were written on the scroll. And so in the case of Ezekiel, he's being given this document, told to eat it, and then he's going to go and deliver this message to the house of Israel. And it's the same thing with John. There's the marriage covenant's being invoked again. He is being told that he's going to go prophesy in the same way Ezekiel's being told to prophesy to the house of Israel. John is also told he's going to have to prophesy. So this is setting the stage for what is about to take place in Revelation chapter 11. And so that's the end of this chapter. Thank you for listening. Like I mentioned, it was going to be a short one. And so tune in next time and we'll get into chapter 11. Thank you and shalom.